when we decided, you know, maybe we should just move, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to leave yet, because I feel like there is so much that we still had to accomplish in New York.
Being a white guy and then you're being black and then we're in an interracial relationship,
Yeah.
I feel like we drew a lot less looks in the Bronx than we did in Harlem.
Right.
Which is sad, I think, because again, we're coming to like the melting pot of the melting pot, which is in Manhattan, and we felt less comfortable there. And at some point you said like you were afraid to hold my hand because
Guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about why we actually moved out of New York, and the best place to do it is right here because New York is right there.
we didn't move too far.
Yeah, so most of this video is going to be probably here or at home. Either way, we're going to be telling you the top 10 reasons why we left New York to live in Jersey. So stick around for the rest of the video. And if it's on our couch, don't get disappointed because there's not enough lighting out, so we might just go home. Who knows? And it might be too loud, so we'll see. Alright, so we decided to just call it a day and do it outside since we're already out here. It looks beautiful, it's not that hot, and
It's
the park
breezy.
is spaced out enough for us not to be wearing masks.
And it's cool as a breeze.
It's cool as a breeze.
Yeah, there's a bunch of benches and there's nobody here. We'll show you guys
I'll show
later.
you. This is like,
Social distancing to the fullest.
yep, which is what you can get in Jersey. Sounds like a why you should move to Jersey vlog, right? Anyways, so the number one reason why we decided to leave.
Well, number one, we both agreed was the cost of living,
Right.
namely rent.
Can I mention one thing that when we just started off our relationship, we did live in New Jersey. We lived in Jersey City to be exact, which is where we are living right now. So it's not unfamiliar to us. It's not a new place. We've lived here before, you know, so we
In a different neighborhood.
In a different neighborhood, but we
Right.
know what to expect. So yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so cost of living and for us was number one because we did live in the Bronx for a few years. It was very cheap, but it was sort of an unbearable situation. And then we moved to Manhattan and we thought we got it made. We found a beautiful place, which it was. But unfortunately, there's a price that comes with it. And
Right.
after living there for a year, we probably would have still justified living there if there was a real need for it. And unfortunately, there wasn't. And the situation there was uncomfortable, a different kind of uncomfortable than it was in the Bronx. So we sort of kind of agreed to find a place that's a reasonable distance to the city, a reasonable commute to the city, and a reasonable cost to live at the proximity of the city.
Right.
So we went from paying $2,000 for rent to paying just under $1,500, guys. So this
Right.
is like almost over $500 worth of savings, and a lot more peace and quiet that comes with it.
So one other thing is, where we were living in the Bronx first, it had its challenges, but we were paying $1,000 there, which is why we were staying there. So yes, in New York you can find affordable places to live,
You could.
but are they in the neighborhoods that you really want to live?
Right.
And is it far from where you work? Is it far from where you go to school? You know, is everything ideal? Maybe not. But if you want to find ideal, you have to pay for ideal. So we left $1,000 a month and then we went to $2,000 a month expecting like the Green New Deal. But that was not the case. So the main reason why we decided to just leave that place specifically and just leave New York altogether was because of that place. So my main concern with that place was safety in general, because the first week of moving there, we knew that something was wrong. Because second week, I ordered a package on Amazon the first week, and around the second week it was scheduled to be delivered. The package never showed up, the package was stolen, and I had to like go to the police station to actually get my money back for that package. And when the police contacted the building had no cameras, so somebody was able, when you're going into the building that we live in, you have to have a fob. So a fob is like a little thing on your key that helps you to get into the building. It's like a security mechanism. So you have to have one of those, and you press it to get into the gates that surrounds the complex that we were living in, and then you have to use it to get into the door. So somebody was able to get into the gates and get into our building, because in that development there were like 6 buildings.
Ours 6 and then 3 more across the street.
Yeah, so somebody got into our building, stole my package, or like Simmons was mentioning, maybe the person already lives in the building. Either way, my package was stolen. So we lived in the Bronx for over 3 years and we never had our packages stolen, ever. Then we moved to Manhattan, and within a month my package was stolen. There was a community meeting that came up, and we went to this community meeting, and I realized that it wasn't only my package that was stolen. Packages were being stolen decades before we moved to that place, and people weren't getting their packages. Some people didn't get their money back, so I was fortunate to even get my money back. So security was like a main concern. Alright, so on the way home, I realized that we were talking in the car about things that we forgot to add into the video. And then I'm about to edit the video right now. So we decided to just stuck these two in. So one other major safety concern that I had was a couple months, like 2 or 3 months before we actually moved out during quarantine, somehow a homeless guy,
April or so,
yeah, a homeless guy got into our building, and I don't know what fob he used or how he got in there, but he ended up sitting down at our front door. Because I remember I was studying because it was coming down to finals or something like that, and I was sitting out in the living room by myself, and then Simas was in the bedroom because he was doing work too or something like that.
We were still in school.
And I heard somebody scream, so it was our next door neighbor. And I turned off the lights because I get so scared so easily. I turned off the lights and I was looking through our window at the neighbor's window because you can see it like that. And then when you look through our door, under the bottom of the door, you should be able to see all the light coming through. But one part of the light was blocked off, so I peeked out through the peephole and I saw that the guy was sitting right there in front of our door. And we called security. Security got the guy out of the building, but my concern is, how the hell did he even get in there in the first place, you know? So yeah, that's another safety issue for me at the place that we were living at. Another thing is, when we moved into the building, we lived next to a staircase. The staircase, first of all, it had shit in it. I'm sorry, just cover your ears. It had shit in it, and the defecation that was in the staircase was so dry, you could have tell that it was in there for like 2 months prior to that or something like that. And there are people that clean the floors, there are security guards, and I reported this to a security guard, and I went back there a week later and I still saw it, and I brought it up in the meeting, and that's when somebody miraculously like took up the poop. Other than that, oh yeah, in the meeting we also learned that there were noise complaints. So we learned that a lady in the meeting, she had noise complaints, and she said she's been dealing with it for like ever since whoever moved in above her moved in, for like almost like a year, and nothing came of it. And we're like, yeah, that would never be us. I don't even know what she's talking about, because in the previous building that we lived in, we lived on the top floor, so there was the top floor, so there was nobody to complain to about noise or for about noise. And then somebody moved in above us in the new place, and it was hell and back. We contacted the building about the noise. They never followed up. When we follow up for them to get a follow-up from them, they said they weren't expecting us to expect a follow-up. So I'm just like, in what world where you're paying $2,000 for rent, you don't expect to get a follow-up on an issue that you have? So like that alone, like within the first month, I knew that that place was just not it, you know?
Yeah, so the noise situation basically escalated so far out of control that we had to get third parties involved. We couldn't deal with it anymore, and we said, look, like, please move us to a different unit. But because we were affordable, right, $2,000 a month, they refused to move us, and they said that because there are no other affordable units open, there are no options to move us out. So I said, well, I know there's open units in the building because I've seen multiple people move out, and I haven't seen people move in.
But we had to move into an affordable.
Right. So it was basically, long story short, the upstairs noise was probably like 50% of the reason why we moved out of there. I would say maybe if you asked me this question about 4 months ago, I would have said that's 99% of the reason I'm moving out. For me, one of the top reasons was, on top of upstairs noise, was also outside noise. One thing I cannot deal with is when people are disrespectful and in general inconsiderate, which I feel like is on purpose. When we lived next to the bridge that takes you to the Bronx, and we also lived on a really wide street, right? And sort of like you have the bridge here, you have the highway here, and you also have a really busy street here. So a lot of dirt bikes, four-wheelers or ATVs, whatever you call them, they would cruise up and down night and day, and you're 24/7, guys. Yo, let me tell you, when we used to live in the Bronx, we had a train, and I knew the train was there. I knew it moving in that this would be a problem, but I chose to deal with it, right? I didn't like it, but I was okay with it. I know you probably have different feelings about that.
I feel like if it's affecting me inside my space, then I care about it. Like, for example, there were people who would smoke in the staircase that was next to our apartment. So there was a staircase next to our apartment, like I mentioned before, and a group of guys would just come into that staircase and light it up in that staircase, and people were putting signs in there. There was a no smoking sign on the door.
Well,
and
it's a no smoking property.
If we live, yeah, it's a no smoking property. I will get into that. If we live here, the staircase is here. So if we're walking to our apartment, you see the door, you can see people, because it's like a glass in the door, you can see people standing in the staircase, and sometimes they have the door open because there's a charger. It's like a combination for disaster. There's a charger outlet, and people would come to the charger, charge their phone, and smoke in the staircase. So it's like a thing that was going on there. So you would be walking into the apartment, and somebody's there looking at you like this, and you don't know if somebody might attack you. They're like, oh, there have never been any reports of attacking the building yet. It didn't happen yet, which means that you don't know if it will happen. We just moved into this building. We don't know the people in the building that much. You know, it's not like a community where everybody's friendly. So I was very uncomfortable with that. One time I remember going to the front office because I was scared to pass the door where this group of guys was there smoking right in front of our apartment door, and I had to, don't worry about that, and I had to get the security guard from the front desk to follow me to the apartment to go into. You remember that? Yeah. I was scared.
I wasn't home yet because at that time life was still like, I don't know, kinda. I guess I was still commuting to the office, and this happened at like, I don't know.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
It just got so bright.
Yeah. So like 5 p.m. or so, all of a sudden, you know, I get a text like, oh, I'm so scared to go home. I'm like, what are you talking about? We have security guards. We have double security because we have a fence and the building fob. There's cameras on the first floor and in the basement, so whoever is in there, security knew about it, right? So when I followed up with our manager, the building manager, and I said, you know, this is a problem, like, are you guys going to do anything about smoking? Are you guys going to do anything about loitering? People are drinking, and it's just a complete like lawless environment. The way it felt.
There was no respect for any rules. The thing that boggled my mind the most was, around the complex, there are no smoking signs everywhere. There's security guard in golf carts because it was a big complex. And then you have people in the park, in the complex, just smoking weed. You have kids on the basketball court playing basketball, and then people are puffing smoke up their nose, like weed, cigarettes, whatever the case may be, in a property that is strictly no smoking. If it wasn't any, if there weren't any,
security guard is like this, let me tell you.
Yeah, just watching. If there wasn't any no smoking policy, I could understand, right? But they said in the lease that you would be fined if you were caught smoking on the premises, and you could even possibly face eviction. Nothing like that happened. It was a lie. It was a joke. They weren't evicting anybody. So that was just a couple of the challenges that we faced in that apartment. So then comes quarantine. The people upstairs start working out every day. It's like this girl would nail like planks of cement onto her feet and just run, you know, like,
and here.
It's just, I remember one night we were home and she and her friends were up there, like about 10 of them wearing heels up above us. And when she comes home, the girl, when she came home from work, she didn't take her heels off. She would walk around in her heels or whatever she would wear in the house, and you would hear that for like from until like 6 o'clock to like 8 o'clock.
Well,
straight.
Again, the problem is there was a rule. This goes back to like lawlessness and disrespect for me. There's a rule that you must have carpet in your apartment, a reasonable amount of it. I think like 80%, which is the standard. And I complained and said, okay, I understand, you know, people are making noise, but can you guys make sure to at least have a carpet there? Because if I'm sitting there and I'm eating my dinner, you know, and I'm watching some TV, all I hear is stilettos bouncing against the hardwood. and then like I hear a guy stomping there, and then I hear parties left and right, even after the pandemic hit, you know. So it's like they said, oh, they shouldn't be having parties there in the first place. No, S word, you know. But seriously though, like it was just, I felt like because we chose to come to what we thought was a really safe and nice community, and we expected like, oh, there's a yard, we can go hang out here, we can invite some friends, play some basketball.
You remember when we made the mistake of hanging out in the yard and we
With
went
my
to sit down with your parents to eat, and everybody was just puffing smoke in the food, like.
Yeah, my mom looked around and she's like, there's like 100 people here, we're the only ones not smoking. I was like, no.
And then when you look up right next to us, there was a no smoking sign.
Yep.
So I don't know, for some people these might be minor things, but for us they were deal breakers and like things that made us like not want to stay there. Another thing is what I realized was ridiculous was when we complained about the packages being stolen, their solution was to come up with a package room that you had to pay for. So they can't secure the building, they can't secure the complex, so you have to pay to have your packages dropped off, and then you go open the lockbox and pick it up. It's common in a lot of places, but I just felt like for the rent that we were paying, the mail guy should be able to drop off the package at our door, and we should be able to come home and pick it up. But that's just me. I had to put a note on our door to prevent our packages from being left at the door, and then we had to make up a relationship with the lady that lives right next door. We would keep each other's packages whenever the other one is not home. So because of that, we became like friends in a sense, because we shared the same problem.
Lucky enough, they were really nice people. They've lived there for a very long time, and then, you know, we had a little small talk here and there once in a while in the elevator. So it wasn't all horrible, right? Like a lot of what we experienced was actually great. We're just sharing the actual concerns of
why we moved out. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed that space. When I went back there to move out, I was sad. Like I was so sad. Other reasons why we just decided to leave was,
well, for me it was pretty much like the dirtiness and trash and like, again, lack of control. I feel like this is like when you are not born and raised in New York,
you probably won't get it.
Right. Well, no, if you are born and raised in New York, you won't get it.
Really?
If you are from somewhere else and you come visit New York, and then you're like, oh my god, how do people live in all this trash? Oh, long story short about dirtiness in the city is rats. So anybody that's been to New York City, you guys must know the size of the rats or dogs or whatever you want to call them.
Or cats.
Cats, maybe. I don't know. They probably chase the cats away. But I've had multiple rats die on my engine. In the car, because where we used to live in the Bronx, there was a lot of rats, a lot of trash.
I think one winter we partially went without a heater in the car because when we turned on the heater, you could smell the remnants of the rat cooking on the engine.
Yes, and we had to scrape off the rat multiple times in multiple places. My dad took a leaf blower, he took it to a mechanic, and the mechanic asked him if it was a small dog that died inside, and he's like, no, it was a rat.
Yeah.
The rat chewed through the windshield spraying wiper thing, whatever you call it. It was just disgusting, you know, with the lack of management and trash. It was really, really bad. Yeah,
and even recently with the non-sweeping during quarantine, when you go and you look at the side of the street, everything is just, there's trash and garbage everywhere. And specifically where we used to live in Manhattan, people would walk their dogs and their dogs would just poop on the pavement, and nobody cared to pick up their dog poop. So you just
walk
imagine,
like a knife, you're like, walk,
you have to keep your eyes peeled on the pavement when you're walking.
Yeah.
But honestly, when I came from Jamaica to live in New York, I didn't like it at first. I hated it because it was new for me. And then I eventually grew to love New York because I was there for over 8 years until I met Simis. Well, I was there for like
on and off 8 years.
Yeah, on and off 8 years until I met Simis, and then we moved to Jersey, and then we moved back to New York. But I don't know, there is some kind of like feeling of being in New York that you just like, you wear it like a badge as a New Yorker, you know. And then when we decided, you know, maybe we should just move, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to leave yet, because I feel like there is so much that we still had to accomplish in New York before we left. But luckily we didn't leave completely because we're just right across the water.
Right there, you know.
Right, it's still there in the background. That's why we're sitting here anyways.
But you know, you're right about the energy, because as a kid, when like my family came to Jersey, my parents never lived in New York. We live about like halfway from New York to Philly, right? So it's like between two cities, but not really in the city. Whenever we used to come visit New York and do like take care of business here, or just come to like hang out, I used to love it, right? The energy, the people, the everything that's happening is awesome, right? Until you move there. And then
you realize
that this is
you can't shut it off.
Right.
Yeah.
It's every single day you have so much noise and everything that comes with it of being a tourist. I couldn't recommend a better place. But actually living somewhere and paying the cost of living, forget money. I'm talking about like mentally and emotionally, and like the intensity that you always feel is
the
good.
City life. It's the city in general. City life in general. I think.
But we also moved to the city now, and it's like it's quiet. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
It's quiet, it's calm, it's much more peaceful. It's like, yeah, it's like an outer borough kind of, but like Jersey City is just as packed, you know, in some places. But it's just not the same. The moment you cross the tunnel from New York to New Jersey, it dies down.
One thing I wanted to say, what you told me, and I see that is true, like in New York there is diversity because they call it a melting pot,
right.
But at the same time the melting pots are like, in a sense, like sectioned off.
Black people, white people,
Spanish people,
Asians and whatever. But here it's like this.
Right, because the building that we live in, there's a guy, a British guy. He's white. He lives upstairs.
And
Me and Simus, right? And he's a gay guy. Me and Simus, we live at the bottom floor. He's white. I'm black. And upstairs there's an Asian family. So alone, our building is like 4 different corners of the world. You know, I mean 3 or. Oh, 4, because
a bunch of different ones.
Yeah, but
and then when you walk outside, you see literally everybody there.
The neighborhood that we used to live in Manhattan, it was in Manhattan, but it was Black Americans mainly. You would see some Spanish people there, and Africans. Yeah, you would see some Spanish people here and there, but it wasn't as mixed as it is here in Jersey City. But I don't know. I don't feel like I'm giving up on New York just yet.
Me, I said about when we moved to the Bronx, was like 5 years ago or so. I said if I'm moving out of New York, I'm moving out of the U.S. And here I am sitting on the opposite side of the river from New York, living here now. But I'm actually okay with it. I never wanted to live in Jersey City again because I saw, like, I lived in a really, I don't want to say a really bad neighborhood, but kind of an undesirable neighborhood because it wasn't that close to the city. It wasn't that like. There was nothing that's like nothing really desirable about it except because I went to school there. So for me it was good, but to commute to the city was a really big hassle all the time, you know. But now we live in a slightly different area. There's downtown Jersey City. I would absolutely love to live in.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we will.
Right.
But I'm okay if I never live in New York again. Especially with the current situation and everything. There's no need for me to be there.
There are some places in Manhattan that we could never afford to live in, but you would never see packages stolen and stuff like that. Just like how there are some places in the Bronx that, like Riverdale and whatever, and those, it wouldn't be considered unfavorable, or we wouldn't be talking about like it's not the best neighborhood. We lived on Jackson Avenue in the Bronx. It wasn't the best. If you know anything, if you don't know anything, go Google it.
Right.
It wasn't the best place. So what we're sharing is our experiences and the places that we've lived, and not like somebody might say, oh, not all of New York is like this. Of course it's not like this, but we never really lived in all of New York. We're just sharing to you what we've experienced, you know?
There's more people, put it this way, there's more people in New York than pretty much like almost the entire Caribbean combined, if you take Haiti out of that, right? So there's so many different people that live here, and then if you take the suburbs, it becomes like a separate country pretty much. For me, like being a white guy and then you're being black and then we're in an interracial relationship, I feel like we drew a lot less looks in the Bronx than we did in Harlem.
Right.
Which is sad, I think, because again we're coming to like the melting pot of the melting pot, which is in Manhattan, and we felt less comfortable there. And at some point you said like you were afraid to hold my hand because you just... I did.
I didn't feel comfortable holding your hand at all because I felt like the Black Americans that were in the surrounding, they would look at me like a traitor. And
especially
you may or may not like what I just said, but that was my personal feeling.
Especially after everything went down with George Floyd.
Exactly.
It was really, really, really tense, really uncomfortable, especially the pandemic and people losing their jobs. And it was so much tension there that I don't know, for when you got your package stolen and you went to the police station, what did they ask you?
Right. Like when I went to the police station to report my package stolen, the police guy, a white police guy there, he looked at me like, oh, are you from the project? And I didn't catch on to it that he was being like, what did they call it? I saw somebody
like passive aggressive racist or whatever.
Right. It's called you guys just leave it in the comments. Yeah.
We'll probably remember it and type it in like right here somewhere, but I can't remember the term.
He was being that way, and he was assuming because I'm black, I lived in the projects, you know. So it's.
But
so
I had to tell you
things.
that. I had to tell you when you came home.
No. I asked you. I'm like, hey, do you think that he really was being racist? And you're like, yeah, that's kind of like what it is. But, so moral of the story is, for up until like the last like 3-4 months into the renting situation, we were miserable. So we just decided to get out and then get out of New York in general. So I don't know. I think that's it for this video. The light is completely gone, and I hope that you enjoyed it. And I think we didn't get a chance to say everything that we wanted to say. So we probably make a part 2 if you guys would like to hear what living in New York is actually like as opposed to visiting. Anyways, we'll see you guys in another vlog, right?
Yep, so leave a thumbs up, leave your comment down below. Let us know if you ever dealt with a similar situation, maybe moving out of a large city to the suburbs or doing anything like that. Share your experience, and then we understand if you've dealt with something like that. Trust me on that one. So we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.